Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In The Young and the Restless, secrets had a way of rotting beneath the polished surface of Genoa City, and Newman could almost smell the decay. Claire had spent enough time watching the powerful players in town, especially her own family, to understand that the truth rarely walked into the light willingly. It had to be dragged there, and right now, the truth she wanted more than anything centered on AUDRA'S and a missing art dealer in Los Angeles. The story refused to die. The official version was vague. An art dealer with questionable connections had vanished. No body, no charges, no official suspects, just whispers. Claire didn't believe in coincidences, especially not when AUDRA'S was involved. Audra had always operated like a chess player, thinking 3 moves ahead, smiling sweetly while pushing someone else toward the edge. Claire had once underestimated her. She wouldn't make that mistake again. Holden Novak had been the loose thread. He had been there in Los Angeles, he had been with Audra, and more importantly, he had panicked when Claire started asking questions. That had been her first confirmation. Claire replayed their last conversation in her mind, the tension in Holden's jaw, the way he avoided eye contact when she mentioned the art dealer, his insistence that nothing significant had happened. He hadn't lied, well, not to her. But he also hadn't confessed. Claire had drawn a hard line. If he couldn't be honest, they couldn't continue seeing each other. It had hurt more than she expected, but she refused to let feelings cloud her judgment, not when someone might be dead. Because that was the piece that haunted her. She didn't believe the art dealer had simply disappeared. She believed something fatal had happened that night, something sudden, something violent. And she believed Holden knew exactly what it was. What she didn't know, what she was desperate to confirm, was the role AUDRA'S had played in it. Holden hadn't meant to kill anyone, that much Claire sensed, but she suspected he had delivered a fatal blow while trying to protect Audra. A shove, a struggle, the art dealer stumbling backward, cracking against the bar, one wrong move, one deadly impact. An accident. But accidents still left consequences. And if Audra had chosen to cover it up instead of coming forward, that was a different kind of crime. Claire refused to let it stay buried. Across town, Kyle Abbott had no idea he was about to be pulled back into Audra's orbit. Kyle had worked hard to rebuild his relationship with Claire after the disaster in Nice. He had crossed lines then, blurred boundaries. He had knowingly stepped into Audra's seduction game because he'd known she was acting on behalf of Victor Newman. Victor had wanted to test him, to manipulate him, to expose weakness. Audra had been the weapons. So Kyle had turned the tables. He had seduced her right back, letting her believe she was winning while he gathered proof of her manipulation. He had kissed her, held her close, played the part convincingly enough that even Claire had doubted him. That had nearly cost him everything. Even now, when Kyle thought about that time, he felt the lingering tension. Because the truth was uncomfortable, the chemistry hadn't been entirely fake. AUDRA'S had a way of getting under people's skin. Recently, that old spark had flickered again. They had found themselves in unexpected agreement during a conversation with Noah Newman. Both of them believed Victor deserved the consequences he was facing. Both of them were tired of being pawns. It had been almost bonding. And then there was society. The night Kyle had kissed Audra, there hadn't been about romance. It had been about taunting her, reminding her of what she couldn't have, reminding her that he had chosen Claire. But even as he'd pulled away, there had been something unspoken between them, something unfinished. Claire knew all of this. That was precisely why Kyle might be the key. Late one evening, Claire asked Kyle to meet her privately. She didn't waste time with small talk. "You still want to prove you're on my side?" she asked evenly. Kyle frowned. "I already did." "Then help me." He recognized that tone, determined, focused, dangerous. She laid it out carefully, the missing art dealer, Holden's evasiveness, her belief that something fatal had happened in Los Angeles. Kyle listened without interrupting, but when she finished, he shook his head slowly. "You want me to get close to Audra again?" "I want you to get her talking." "That's not the same thing," he said, though they both knew it was. Claire's gaze didn't waver. "You've done it before. And it almost destroyed us." "That was different," she insisted. "That was about Victor. This is about the truth." Kyle ran a hand through his hair. Claire, if something really happened, if it was an accident. Then why hide it, she shot back. Why cover it up, why let someone's family wonder what happened? That hit him. Kyle had grown up in a world of secrets and power plays. He had seen firsthand how silence protected the guilty and punished the innocent. But he also knew Audra wasn't heartless, ruthless, yes, strategic, absolutely, but murder. He wasn't sure. Still, Claire's conviction unsettled him. What exactly are you asking? He said quietly. I want you to make Audra believe she has a chance with you. Kyle stared at her. You want me to seduce her? I want you to let her think you might. The distinction felt thin. Claire continued, her voice steady. You said yourself there's still something there. Use that. Get her comfortable. Get her reminiscing. Bring up Lowe's angels. See what slips. And if she doesn't slip, then we know we were wrongs. Kyle didn't believe that for a second. Claire wouldn't stop until she had answers. He thought about Holden, about how defensive he'd been, about the way Audra had carefully avoided discussing that trip in detail. If there was something to uncover, this might be the only way. But at what cost? Meanwhile, Audra Charles sensed the shift in the air long before Kyle approached her. She was too perceptive not to. When Kyle began showing up more often, casually, almost accidentally, it didn't escape her notice. Their conversations stretched longer, their eye contact lingered. It felt organic. And that was what made it dangerous. Audra had learned from the fiasco in Nice. She wouldn't let herself be played so easily again. But when Kyle spoke about shared frustrations, about feeling manipulated by Victor, she couldn't help but respond honestly. They both knew what it was like to be used. One evening, as they sat together at society, the atmosphere felt heavier than usual. Softer lighting, fewer people, too much history between them. You ever think about how different things might have been? Kyle asked. Audra arched a brow. You mean if you'd chosen me? He held her gaze. That silence stretched. Claire's plan was working. But somewhere beneath the strategy, emotions blurred. Kyle wasn't entirely pretending, and Audra, despite her instincts, found herself wanting to believe. And that was exactly when the danger escalated. Because the closer Kyle got, the more likely it became that Audra would let something slip. And somewhere else in Genoa City, Claire waited, obsessed, relentless, convinced that a deadly secret was on the verge of being exposed. She had no idea how high the emotional stakes were about to climb. Kyle didn't intend for it to feel real. That had been the rule he silently set for himself the moment he agreed to Claire's proposal. Keep it controlled, keep it strategic, don't cross lines. But emotions didn't always respect rules. The more time he spent with Audra, the more complicated it became. They shared more than tension, they shared perspective. Both had been maneuvered by Victor Newman, both had been underestimated, both were fighting to reclaim control of their own narratives. It made their conversations intimate in a way that didn't require physical closeness. Still, the physical closeness returned. A brush of hands, a lingering look, a laugh that lasted too long. Audra wasn't naive, she noticed the shift, but instead of questioning it, she allowed herself to lean into it. After all, she had once believed she could have Kyle, that they could have been something powerful together. When Kyle brought up Lowe's angels for the first time, he did it carefully. Funny how some trips change everything, he said lightly. Audra's smile faltered for half a second. It was subtle, but it was there. Some trips are better forgotten, she replied. Are they? Kyle pressed gently, or are they just unfinished? Her eyes sharpened. What are you really asking? He held her gaze, measuring her reaction. I'm asking if there's something you've been carrying alone. That landed. Audra had carried it alone. Holden's panic, the sickening sound of impact, the stillness that followed, the frantic decision to leave before authorities could piece together what had happened. It had been an accident, she told herself that every day. But accidents didn't erase guilt. She studied Kyle carefully. You think I'm capable of something unforgivable. I think you're capable of protecting yourself. That was true. Audra exhaled slowly. Sometimes protecting yourself means making impossible choices. Kyle's pulse quickened, he was close. Did someone get hurt? He asked quietly. Silence fell between them. For a split second, it looked like she might say it, might confess that Holden had shoved the art dealer during a struggle meant to defend her, that the man had stumbled backward into the bar, hitting his head in a way no one could undo. But Audra wasn't reckless. Instead, she leaned back and gave him a cool smile. You're fishing. Kyle didn't deny it. And if I were, he asked, then I'd wonder who sent you. That question cut deeper than she knew. Because as much as Kyle was trying to get answers for Claire, he found himself questioning the morality of what he was doing. He wasn't sure anymore whether he was uncovering truth or manufacturing betrayal. Meanwhile, Claire grew impatient. Holden remained silent. Kyle hadn't delivered a breakthrough yet, and Claire's obsession intensified. She replayed every detail, every inconsistency, every guarded expression. She convinced herself she was doing the right thing. When she finally confronted Kyle about progress, the tension between them exploded. She almost admitted something, Kyle insisted. Almost isn't enough, Claire snapped. You don't even know for sure that someone's dead. I know they're missing. And if it was an accident, he demanded, if Holden panicked, if Audra panicked, then they should have come forward. Kyle saw it then, the rigidity in Claire's thinking, the refusal to entertain nuance. You're willing to destroy us again over this, he said quietly. Claire's expression flickered with hurt. I'm willing to find the truth. The distance between them widened. Back at Society days later, Kyle and Audra found themselves alone again, but this time something had shifted. Audra wasn't as open, not as relaxed. You're not subtle, she told him calmly. It's about what? About trying to get me to confess to something. Kyle's stomach dropped. I don't know what you think happened in Lowe's Angels, she continued, but if you're doing this for Claire, you should tell her to let it go. That confirmed everything without confirming anything. Kyle studied her face. There was pain there, real pain, not manipulation. Was it an accident? He asked softly. Audra's composure cracked just enough. Some things don't need to be dragged into the light if all they'll do is hurt more people. That was as close to the truth as she would ever come. Kyle realized then that he had crossed into dangerous territory, not just emotionally but morally. If Holden had delivered a fatal blow accidentally while protecting Audra and they had chosen silence out of fear, exposing it now wouldn't bring justice, it would bring ruin. And yet Claire would never accept ambiguity. When Kyle walked away from Audra that night, he knew he couldn't continue the charade. He met Claire one last time and told her everything, every hint, every near confession, every emotional fracture he had seen. It was an accident, he said finally. I'm almost sure of it. You're almost sure, Claire repeated bitterly. I'm sure enough to know dragging it out will destroy more lives. Claire stared at him, torn between obsession and love. You promised you'd help me. I did, but I won't manipulate someone into confessing to an accident that already haunts them. For a long moment, neither spoke. Claire realized then that she had become so focused on uncovering the past that she was risking her future. Holden's silence, Audra's guilt, Kyle's hesitation. The truth existed, but it wasn't clean, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't the explosive scandal she had imagined. It was messy, human, tragic. And sometimes, tragedy didn't need exposure to be real. As Claire stood alone later that night, she understood something sobering. Power wasn't just about uncovering secrets, it was about knowing which ones to leave buried. But even as she tried to let it go, one thought lingered. In Genoa City, buried secrets had a way of resurfacing when you least expected them. And if the truth about Lowe's Angels ever came out, it wouldn't just shake Audra and Holden. It would change everything.